All right, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us here on this Thursday. Yes, we are just one day away here from Friday, but you are watching right now. I'm Chris Gros, and joined right now, and as always, or at least most of the time, if anything, I'm the one.
I was going to say.
We need to get you a vacation, Jack. Not that I mean, I want you here. But I just realized, I don't think I've done a show without you.
I don't think so. We should do a poll on where I should take my vacation.
That's right. Yeah, and then have the viewers because what if it's Bali or something like that, right? And then have the viewers kind of maybe come and fill in for the time off because you got to take 2-3 weeks for that.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah. Or if you want to maybe help me out, buy me a meal while I'm in Bali. Just kidding.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would be a fun experiment. We could do a producer for the night or a producer for the day, kind of like how the Heat, when they assembled the big three, it was who's going to run point? I don't know. Let's have a fan
exactly.
do it, right?
I could always zoom in from Bali.
Yeah,
I might not be paying attention to the stories. You might hear some pretty lame responses from me because it's a little too much R&R going on, but I'll give it a shot.
Hardest working man here in the building, and we definitely need to get you that vacay here soon. But in the meantime, while we do have you here, we are very thankful for all the behind-the-scenes and on-camera work that you do, Jack, guiding this show. We have a huge rundown today and a lot to get to, and we're actually going to be doing one of those kind of callbacks. Yesterday, during the end of our show, we were watching as the mayor and 2 council members were assembling in Mission Bay to talk about a story that has actually gotten a fair bit of criticism, but also was seemingly sort of rendered a solution in a short amount of time. Now, how that solution, which solution they chose, that's going to be the crux
and how long the solution will last as well. So, of course, we're talking about the Mission Bay bathrooms. This was something that we covered, I believe it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago when we started to see these issues. Yeah. Of course, Mission Bay is a sprawling region here in San Diego. A lot of parks, a lot of recreational sites there, and so there's a lot to explore. You could spend a whole day in the Mission Bay area. However, there are some times when nature calls and you might not have the facility necessary to heed those calls.
Yeah, 13 bathrooms closed. There were obviously a couple of bathrooms that remained open, but we even saw this during the live press conference. We took this live. There was a woman who tried to use the bathroom that they had as an example behind them for being closed, and she does this. She looks at the sign, and she just goes and walks away.
Yeah, you see the frustration in real time.
Yeah, even though they're there to announce the reopening. So it's definitely one of those things where I think people become frustrated with the machinations behind even local politics. But alas, here we are. All 13 restrooms along Mission Bay that closed down because of budget cuts are now being reopened starting on Friday. This move comes after complaints from constituents and growing unsanitary conditions. But these closures took effect in early July as part of the city's adopted fiscal year budget. This was something, again, that we saw a number of people try to come up with solutions. That includes a city council member, Raul Campillo, who really took the city to task, I should say here. Really brought up the frustration that even though this really, I don't believe that this is the district. In fact, we saw Joe LaCava and Dr. Jen Campbell there yesterday. They share this area as part of, they are in charge of the coastal districts, if you will. But Campillo was hearing a lot about this. He had come up with some money that he felt could be used to keep the bathrooms open to the end of the year. But we heard strongly from the mayor, we're not going to do a short-term solution. But something clearly changed in the mayor's decision-making because while this is happening, it could still be a short-term solution. But let's listen to what Councilmember Campillo had to say about the reopening news. This is something I was texting Tori back and forth with when she was at the mayor's press conference. I was saying, I wonder how, Councilmember Campillo feels.
That said that a person was a 60-year-old diabetic with urinary tract problems and cannot hold it and walk to the next restroom.
Apologize. There's a little bit of we call it a black frame here in the news industry. We apologize for that. But yeah, I mean that's the issue is we'll also take a look here of the map.
Yeah.
I want to bring this up too. So taking a look here, all of those that are in red, those signify areas that are closed. So essentially what you're hearing from Councilmember Campillo is, if you are of a younger age, you're more active, you're more agile, this might not be a problem for you, but this is for everyone. And you are going to have populations who perhaps have some of these issues, maybe perhaps aren't able to walk that takes you from one restroom to the other. And that can present some serious problems here. And so we've been seeing that since the bathrooms have closed, we've had viewers that have reached out to us, and they have shown us what they say looks and smells like urine stains. People essentially relieving themselves right outside of that locked entrance that we were showing you earlier, or we were describing to you earlier about that woman prior to that press conference who had to use the restroom and realized that she couldn't go.
And depending on where you are, you could be a quarter mile, you could be a half mile, you could be 3/4 of a mile away from a bathroom.
This is one of the things we were talking about the last time we covered it. We were trying to just really quickly off of this map here, try to gauge which of these restrooms were the ones that probably present the biggest challenge. There's that South Shores one that's just south of Fiesta Island. That's one that, we assume would present some problems. El Carmel right there off of Mission Boulevard on the left side of your screen. Hospitality Point down there on the south, because while Mission, I can't read what that one says right there, but the one that's just northwest of it, while that looks close, look at the route you got to take to get there. So there are certain bathrooms here that do present some serious challenges if you perhaps don't have the facilities and the capability to make that long journey just to use the restroom.
And look, I mean, the reality of the picture on the ground is that I'm not sure how it is that they came to choose the bathrooms, but some of those bathrooms have or do feel a little unsanitary, even the ones that are open. So I can only imagine maybe you decide to skip one, unbeknownst to you that there are several that are closed because that's not the most sanitary. And then on that long walk, you go to the next one, and that's a closed one, right? Like, I can only imagine that frustration you might feel when you thought, all right, I'm just going to go to the next one, and the next one's a closed one. And so
we also know that Fiesta Island, there's portable restrooms, and only half of them are available.
Correct.
And if for those of you, it's a popular place for people who are visiting with their RVs or their campers and whatnot. I go running around Fiesta Island, so I'm there somewhat frequently, and you can see whether it's a holiday weekend, especially this time of year. There's often times where I'm going around and it is packed. It is absolutely packed with RVs. Each RV holding an entire family, perhaps even more than that. So you look at, I think that says 7 out of 14 stalls right now. That is not a lot for some of the traffic that Fiesta Island and those campgrounds can bring in.
No, for sure. And while, again, we heard from Councilmember Raul Campillo about the problem at large, why he was so passionate about it. He was getting those calls. Again, probably every constituent in San Diego has utilized this, regardless of what district the council member is in. But we did hear from District 1 council member, which of course is Joe LaCava. He's also the council president. He spoke about the solution. Both him and his Dr. Campbell's office gave up their sort of discretionary funds. Those were things that were obviously heavily debated in the budget process to try to keep Mission Bay bathrooms open. Here's a little bit more of what we heard from the council member.
The public, my constituents, and tourists were very vocal. This was one budget cut that was too deep, too impactful, and undermined the enjoyment of this wonderful resource we call Mission Bay.
Yeah, and so we heard from the council member as well as the mayor about how it is that they plan on funding the reopening. It comes from a combination of community project program and services allocations. That's the discretionary funding that each office gets. Each city council office gets this, and they are going to help chip in with that being Council President Joe LaCava and Councilmember Jennifer Campbell. They also have a grant fund where they got a little bit more money from the state, a little bit higher than expected state grant funding. That funding will last through the calendar year. So they're able to scrounge up the money. But from what we understand, this is potentially still temporary.
Yeah, well, we know when we were talking about the overall city budget, of course, Mayor Todd Gloria's initial draft had some pretty steep cuts. We talked about the ones to the arts. We talked about all of these different cuts that generated a lot of pushback from certain communities. That was something that was not just solitary or isolated to the San Diego area. This was a statewide thing that we were seeing. We saw a very similar thing with the governor when he brought his January proposal, and we saw the May revision. something that we saw similarly to in both of those instances, whether it was on the state level or it was on the local level, was that, the money kind of just sort of appeared. We were talking about those high tax returns that they were able to generate due to some of these booming AI industries in the state's case. And we kind of saw a similar thing here on the state level, where those fears of these major cuts subsided to a certain extent. Not completely, of course. We still are talking about a lot of these cuts that we're seeing, but nonetheless, you did see it go down from what those, or go up, I guess, the amount of money that was being able to put in from these different avenues or revenue sources. So again, we're seeing that here. This one was a little bit more manipulating the money management and trying to see where they could get it in. But in the case of the state, in the case of San Diego, and in the case of this specifically, this is not something that they think can continue into the next year. They acknowledge that this problem is going to be something they face again next year. And that's why, in terms of how long are we going to see these restrooms open at this point, it's still anyone's guess.
I would like to point out that the mayor has clearly had a change of heart and or a change of opinion when it comes to how to fund this. Because I do want to read, there was a ballot measure that the city was going to fund that was going to ask the voters to decide on parking near waterways and parks like Mission Bay. That decided not to, that ended up not happening. So they had $1.8 million set aside for that. That's what Councilmember Raul Campillo was attempting to pass or suggest be used to reopen the bathrooms. Mayor Todd Gloria put out a statement on July 24th. I'm going to read to you in part a part of this. He starts off by saying, "Thank you for your July 15th memorandum regarding the Mission Bay Park closures." He goes on to talk about the issues with the debt. He then goes on to say, quote, "Unfortunately, no funding has since been identified to reopen every Mission Bay restroom during the current fiscal year. While I appreciate your suggestion to dedicate the $1.8 million in ballot measure funds to this purpose, I believe it would be premature to commit those one-time resources today. Several significant potential obligations remain unresolved. The city may need to fund a special election in Council District 5, that being Marnie Von Wilpert's district, because if she were to win election for I believe it's the 50th district that she is running against Supervisor Jim Desmond, that would require obviously a special election to fill her seat, an expense that was not contemplated in the adopted budget. We also anticipate the possibility of substantial unbudgeted costs associated with the upcoming El Nino storm seasons. Now, that's not to say that the extra state grant funding and the willingness of Councilmember LaCava and Campbell could not have now been unforeseen then when that statement was written and then contributed to this. But if I am Councilmember Campillo, I would imagine that I would have some questions about, because the mayor is admitting that essentially this is a one-time funding stopgap measure.
We have sound here that even says that in specific. We have this, then we have, it's not just here the mayor, but we're going to play it to you nonetheless because I think this is going to underscore exactly what you're saying right here. So take a listen.
This does solve our immediate problem, but it does not solve the gap between our resources it takes to keep city services at the service levels that San Diegans expect.
Mission Bay Park is one of our city's greatest assets, and basic amenities like clean, accessible bathrooms are essential for the residents and tourists who visit this park.
So there you go. And this is going to be a situation where you talked about the one-time funding. What we do know, and this was something that was sent out in that statement from the city and from the mayor's office, where it says this financial condition of this, the amount of the cost that it's going to require to keep this open, is going to be monitored throughout the rest of calendar year 2026. And then the city will then consider keeping it open through the rest of that 2027 fiscal year at their mid-year budget review. So again, this is a will it, won't it?
Yeah.
We have it for right now, but whether this is not a permanent fix whatsoever for those who have been fiercely advocating for it, or you fiercely advocating for it. This is not going to be the end of your battle.
No, and it could be again, the discrepancy of choosing to do it when Campillo suggested it and choosing to do it now could be as simple as, hey, we have more money. We have more money in the pot now. Let's say it's like $5 million versus when you were suggesting it, we only had a pot of about $1.8 million of discretionary funding, and therefore our priorities lie in a special election, potential super El Nino, impacts and effects. I understand that more money can be gathered in some way. But look, this is still a one-stop-gap, a 1-year fix, if you will. And it is likely going to be an issue again next year unless the city is able to increase revenue somehow, because costs are expected to go up year after year.
It's going to be an issue even sooner than that. Yeah. It's going to be in the middle of the fiscal year.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, very, very good point. Okay, so we also have a statement here from Councilmember Raul Campillo. I know that we heard from him in that soundbite here. Do we want to get to that?
Yeah, let's get to this too. This was written very shortly after this announcement. Right? We were trying, because we know that he was kind of spearheading this on his own.
Yes.
We wanted to get this statement as soon as possible after we caught wind of what this was going to be about. So here it is there on air. He's writing, "I have been pushing hard against this public health issue alongside community leaders and local medical professionals since it was proposed. I'm proud that my advocacy, along with that of tens of thousands of San Diegans on this important issue, finally got through to the mayor, and much needed relief is coming to our community." So, I off the top of my head, I know that there was, so it seems like there was a measure to get this funding reinstated, but it didn't make it out of committee because it was voted in the budget. He voted for the budget on the assumption that there was going to be additional legislation that was going to address this, but it wasn't able to get to the full city council at that point. So that was something that he said I don't want to put words in his mouth, but something he didn't anticipate nonetheless. And so we saw him quickly try to kind of spearhead this as we see here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that is going to wrap it up on our coverage here of the Mission Bay bathrooms. Again, they reopen on Friday, so if you're going to be down at Mission Bay today, you might still see them closed. I believe they got to do some sort of cleaning up, if they've been just sort of sitting there closed, reactivating the pipes. I don't know.
We'll throw the map one more time if you want to just take a quick look at it, because like we've mentioned, there are some locations that are far harder to access than others. So, that's important. It depends on where you park. It depends on how you kind of, order your itinerary, perhaps if you're spending the day around either Mission Beach or Mission Bay. So just something to keep in mind there as you plan your next trip. I think I might stop by tonight. So something to keep in mind for myself. Maybe I just put that up for me.
There you go. Awesome. All right. That is going to do it. Mission Bay, great spot to watch a good sunset.